Hey everybody, it's Michael from Dead Stick Adventures here. I get lots and lots and lots of questions about how the licensing works in Australia. So right now I'm going to show you the fastest and cheapest way to get a license to fly an aeroplane in Australia. Two tiers in Australia, we have RAAUS and we have CASA. RAAUS is cheaper, CASA is more expensive. Recreational pilot through to commercial pilot. Let's talk about recreational. The fastest way to get a license in Australia is to get an RPC, 25 hours of flying and one multiple choice exam, two multiple choice exams if you count the pre-solo air legislation exam. They're easy exams. You get a license to fly an aircraft up to 600 kilos by yourself within 25 nautical miles of your local airport. Then, once you've got the license, you add on a passenger endorsement, which allows you to take one extra passenger. That's two people in the aeroplane. Then you can add on a navigation endorsement, and that allows you to take the aircraft anywhere in Australia except for controlled airspace. For most people, that works. You can take a 600 kilo airplane that's a little Piper Sport or a Jabiru with a passenger and you can travel Australia. Simple. If you want to go further or faster, then you need to step up to CASA. The way to go from RPC to RPL, Recreational Pilot's License, is what CASA calls it, is a flight review. This allows you to step up to aircraft that weigh 1,500 kilos. So that's a Cessna 172, Cessna 182, but not a 210. That's a Piper Cherokee, a Piper Archer, a Piper Arrow, but not a Piper Lance. To get this flight review, you just need to do a simple flight. You can look up the requirements for a flight review online, go out to the training area, stalls, steep turns, the basic maneuvers, practice force landing, back into the circuit, do some circuits with the instructor, and they sign you off. Most people need 5 to 8 hours of training to be able to handle the bigger, heavier aircraft with more inertia. Some people are faster. In order to get this flight review, you need to have an ASIC, Aviation Security Identity Card. You need to have a medical, a Class 2, although they do allow you to get the RPL initial issue with a Class 5, and a Class 4 is coming online soon. Just Google all the requirements. You need an AELP, Aviation English Language Proficiency Certificate, and you need a recent photo lodged with CASA. Get those four before you do your flight review, and your flight review will sail through. Once you've got your RPL, if you've already got a navigation endorsement, it carries over. Any other endorsements you've got, like tailwheel, will also carry over. When you've got an RPL, it's designed for outside controlled airspace, but you can add controlled airspace. You can add Class C airspace and Class C airports. You can add Class D airspace and Class D airports onto your RPL as a controlled airspace endorsement. And you can add further endorsements to this tailwheel, gas turbine if you're really keen, but you can only fly an aircraft up to 1,500 kilos. If you want to go further than that, you need to do a PPL exam and a PPL flight test. The PPL exam is difficult, but it's nothing you can't tackle in a 5-day theory course as long as you've read the book. So you read the Bob Tate book, you do the theory course, you do the theory exam, and you've passed your PPL. Then you pass your PPL flight test after you've done some training. It's very similar to the flight review, but it adds on a bit of controlled airspace work. So here in Adelaide, we go to Parafield, and depending if your mission includes going to Adelaide, we might go to Adelaide as well. Class C and Class D, plus the controlled airspace. That gets you a PPL. The PPL allows you to fly an aircraft up to 5,700 kilos, which is which includes your aircraft like your 210s. And bigger aircraft than that. Obviously, you have to add endorsements when you want to go larger than that. You want to go multi. You can only add IFR to a PPL. You can add endorsements to your PPL like multi-engine or gas turbine, so on and so forth, to fly bigger airplanes. For that, you need 50 hours of flying, and you have to have done some instrument flight time to pass the flight test. Once you've done that, you can go on to CPL. I cut there because I'm going into too much. Once you've got your PPL, you can add IFR and you can add other endorsements to it. Gas turbine, for example, you might want to fly a PC-12 on a PPL. which you can do as long as you've got the proper endorsements. Then, once you've got your PPL and you've got enough hours, for a CPL, you need 250. You can step up to a CPL. For that, you need a commercial pilot's license. 7 exams, you need 20 hours of training. Then you can do the flight test as long as you've got 250 hours. And in Part 61, if you look that up online, you'll find a bunch of requirements. From there, you can go on and get a job. Once you've got a CPL, you can be paid for flying. You can get a job as an instructor and do an instructor rating, or you can go on and time build or get a job. That's the CASA path. Back on RAAUS, if you've got an RPC, you can step up to a flight instructor. 150 hours and an exam, and you can get you and a heap of training, of course, and you can get yourself a flight instructor certificate. If you want to get paid for flying, that is the fastest and cheapest way to get paid for flying. Do an RPC, do 150 hours, and get a flight instructor job as an RAAUS instructor. And let's talk about how the hours count. If you're flying in RAAUS, all of the hours count towards your hours for your PPL and your CPL. If you're flying under the CASA system, all of your total hours count towards the hours for your RAAUS certificate. But the only exception is flight instructor hours here don't count for flight instructor hours in CASA. Total hours do, but hours giving instruction don't count. Okay, we talked about the hours. Let's talk about the average price, how much it costs to get a pilot's license in Australia. Under RAAUS, for your recreational pilot's certificate, you need 25 hours minimum. Most people take 30. 25 hours times by $250 per hour is $6,250. You can get a pilot's license for 6.5 grand. Under CASA, if you want an RPL, 25 hours the minimum, multiplied by $450 per hour, $11,250. If you want a PPL, 50 hours multiplied by $450 per hour, $22,500. You can see now why I recommend RPC to RPL. You save yourself 6 grand. We've talked about how, we've talked about how much. Now let's talk about how long it takes. 25 hours is the minimum. Most people take 30 to 35. If we just take the minimum and you can do one lesson per week and you can do a double lesson, so that's about 2 hours of flying per day, you can get it done in 12 weeks. Now, 1 in 3 lessons cancels because we have people, aeroplanes, and weather as variables. So 12, add on a couple, make it 15 weeks. If you can do it full time, if you're in a fortunate place to be able to do that, double lesson per day is about all most people can handle. 12 to 15 days is what you're looking at. Let's talk about everybody's favorite books and theory. When you're doing your RPC, so pre solo, you want to get a hold of this book here, The Flying Training Manual, and just read it. You don't have to understand everything that's in it, just read it. So you've got a framework on which to hang the knowledge when you do the flight lesson. It goes through every lesson in detail. That'll get you to solo. Once you've done your solo, you need to understand air legislation or air law. The VFRG is your guide for that. Don't memorize it, but know where to find everything in it. How does seatbelts work? How does airspace work? When do I set my altimeter? That's all in here. All the rules that you need to know about flying. And you need to know that when you do your flight review to convert from RPC to RPL. Once you've done that and you're ready to do your RPL exam or your PPL exam, you only have to do the RPL exam if you do initial issue. You have to do your PPL exam though if you want a PPL. Bob Tate Study Guide 1 and 2. Have a read of them, then do a theory course, then go and sit your exam. There's some really good stuff in here, some practice exams and some practice questions. If you're acing those, go and try the exam. If you're having trouble with it, find a theory course provider to get your PPL exam done. Remember, the exams aren't required if you do an RPC to RPL. It's only required if it's RPL initial issue or PPL initial issue.